Hey, what is up? Welcome to the PHNX Rising Show, brought to you by the DraftKings Sportsbook app, America's #1 sportsbook app. Don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe wherever you get your podcast, and don't forget to leave a 5-star review. My name is Ramon Chavez. I'm here with Owen Evans. Owens, we got some breaking news today regarding tomorrow's game. Rising, we're supposed to visit New Mexico United over there in New Mexico, but we got some breaking news today from the team. And Owen, fill us in. What's going on?
Yeah, there's really isn't a podcast that we wanted to be doing, is it? Let's be clear on that. But tomorrow's game against New Mexico United has been called off. The reason for that is that there have been COVID cases within Rising's covered persons list. So that is players, immediate staff that tend to deal with in close proximity with players. So yeah, effectively, that's the update. There's COVID in the Rising camp. There is at least one game that we've lost already, possibly more now going forward, with another away game just a week later away to Hartford. So at this point, we're going to have an enforced little early season break, I think.
And so there has been some rising COVID cases in USL teams. We were talking about this before the show got started, that Colorado were dealing with the bout with COVID, and some of their staff members and players were dealing with that. They've missed out 2 games, if I'm correct, Owen. One against San Diego Loyal, and then this weekend's game with San Antonio was also postponed. So is this, should we prepare for maybe a little bit more COVID? Honestly, just in my end, I thought we were kind of done with that, especially with summer. The sun's out, and I thought maybe we were kind of, done away with COVID. But it sounds like there might be a little bit more in the horizon as far as cases are concerned. So we may be getting used to this.
So we are seeing this is broadly now across the US,
Mhm.
we are seeing an uptick in cases. So to an extent, this shouldn't be a surprise. You are correct that Colorado Springs have also been dealing with issues at the moment. They've already lost a couple of games. We don't know quite when they're going to be back. The hope is that they're back after this San Antonio game that's been postponed for this weekend, but we will have to wait and see. I think, though, today's news, it came in late. Let's be clear on that. The indications early doors were that Rising were preparing to travel today. And
Mhm.
then all of a sudden, just this morning, something changed. And it took a
Gotcha.
little while. It took a little while for this to be announced. It's been talking about for a while. From what I gather, the league was holding things up, which I have some opinions on and would like to give those later. But yeah, it's concerning. There's no official line yet on what this means after this weekend. There's also
Mhm.
no official line on how many cases there are in Rising's camp, whether those are, the severity of those cases and who exactly has them. But
Mhm.
yeah, at this point, we're dealing with a lot of question marks, to be
Yeah.
honest.
No, for sure. I think the closest thing, and I'll go to you because of this, because you were there for that 2020 season, the early, of course, 2021. So how does the league and how does the team typically deal with COVID cases? If someone is sick, do they just send them to go and get a test and kind of just wait on those results, and how does that process come about from your experience?
I think the problem that we've seen here is that the league is changing its COVID testing protocols.
Mm,
We're not in 2020, things were very kind of quick. There were frequent tests a certain amount of time out ahead of games and testing every week. And we used to get the testing reports every week that would say how many tests were administered, how many
mhm,
positives came back. Well, the testing reports have stopped. Testing requirements now aren't anywhere near as stringent as they were. And so you end up in a position now whereby there are far less social distancing protocols in place. There is
yeah.
far less masking in place. You
Mhm,
end up in a situation where these people are going on commercial flights with other people who are not wearing masks. So they are getting out on these planes, possibly catching COVID in that way or in other circumstances as well. Let's be honest, there's
mhm,
not exactly masking in any real location anymore for
yeah.
USL. And if they're spreading it around until eventually somebody displays symptoms, what you find is that it's not being caught as quickly as it would have done back in the past, which lets you isolate those people. Now you're in a case whereby they're spreading it around the entire squad before
Mhm,
ends up being symptomatic, gets a test, realizes they're positive, and they have to test everybody else.
yeah. And so, taking that into account, do you feel like that's what happened this week with maybe it was a rising player, a staff member that, was just feeling ill and said, "You know what? I'm going home for today. I'll go get the test if I'm feeling a little bit more sick." And maybe this happened earlier this week where someone did test positive, and they said, hey, let's just go test everybody, let's see what's going on. And then they finally got word today. Is that what you've been hearing kind of from behind the scenes?
Not quite. I think the thing about it now is you have to bear in mind tests are incredibly quick, especially if people are using the rapid antigen tests. They're
Yeah.
coming in within 15 minutes, right? I mean, I've done them before. It's a quick process. So I'd imagine that's what's happened here. Someone, possibly even this morning, hasn't been feeling very well
Mm,
and tested, and all of a sudden there's a scramble.
gotcha. And you said something with the league office. So was the league contemplating going ahead with this game, or what happened there?
I can't tell you quite what the league was doing in that regard. What I can tell you is that the announcement ultimately today was delayed by the league.
Okay.
So there was an idea that this game was not going to happen, and the league put the brakes on things. Now, personally, I think that that shows a degree of the league just being flat out of touch with reality of a game like this, whereby Phoenix is, New Mexico is one of the closest away games for Phoenix Rising fans,
Mhm.
many of whom some were traveling today driving up. And so the league puts the brakes on this announcement to let them get further across over there. Look, if you're going to do as much as they like to do with the branding around, look at these incredible fans and they go off and travel and they do all of this kind of stuff, you cannot then turn around and leave them in the lurch in the way that they did today by delaying that announcement longer than was necessary. Those
Mhm.
fans should be told as soon as possible so they can turn around and get back here, or they don't start driving, or they don't get on a plane. But the league instead decided to drag its heels over this one. All it's done is held things up. It's meant that some people, I have been in contact with certain fans now who were on
Mhm.
their way over to New Mexico and have discovered today that the game is off. If they'd have
Yeah.
heard sooner, they could have turned around sooner.
Yeah, no, and definitely, and especially when you travel. I mean, when you travel, you make arrangements way beforehand. You're talking about hotels. You're talking about, how are we splitting gas, and how are we doing all this stuff. So I'm sure there's money already spent by rising fans that were expecting to go to this game, and I completely agree with your point that by the fact that they delayed this announcement, now these fans are potentially losing some money on their end just because they're trying to support their team. So, and that's not right. So, hopefully something can be done to address that for sure. Oh, and let's take a quick break. Let's talk about OG's brands. If you guys haven't yet, make sure to stop by your local dispensary and grab some amazing scratch made THC gummies from our friends at OG's. They have great flavors like blackberries and cream and watermelon and pineapple. That's my favorite. I always say that on the show. And they're perfect if you're in the mood for an uplifting sativa and or a chill indica. So if you're interested in trying the amazingly delicious variety of flavors that OG's brands has to offer, go to ogsbrands.com. That's OGEEZbrands.com to find an OG's near you. Well, I do, and again, thank you to OG's brands for the sponsorship. But going back to the news today, it's rough, man. Like and I don't want to sound, because I'm caught off guard by this announcement. And I don't want to sound callous, but I thought we were done with COVID. As far as affecting things like this, I've had a few people that I know that isolated incidents, like they would get it, but as far as like a pack or a group or multiple people, I thought maybe that was kind of done away with. But that goes to show that it's not something that should be forgotten or taken lightly, and that it's still happening right now.
Yeah, and I think that unfortunately it's that kind of an attitude almost that's gotten us to the kind of position that we're in right now,
Yeah.
whereby the league just kind of scrapping a lot of protocols as they go, and most teams kind of scrapping. Even last year, things were starting to fall apart. I mean, teams
Mhm.
had a lot of protocols that, let's be perfectly frank, were in writing but not in practice. The number
Yeah.
of stadiums that I'd show up to where it was insisted beforehand that masks were required and all of that, and you show up and there's not a single person, including club staff, wearing them.
Yeah.
I it kind of shows the fact that there's just been a little bit of almost disdain at times towards those kind of restrictions that the clubs have, in theory, been having to put into place, and
Mhm.
it makes you question sometimes how closely certain clubs follow them. Now, I can't possibly speak to where this has come from with Rising, how they've gotten it. We don't know those details, and we probably never will know some of those
Mhm.
details. But it's It is a reminder, isn't it? It's a reminder that ultimately these teams aren't out of the woods. The fact that we've had two clubs that have had serious incidents, and in fact, if we want to go down that route, there is another incident as well. FC Tucson. They
Uh,
haven't had any cases on their team, but their
mhm,
match against Richmond Kickers has been called off because Richmond have positive cases within
wow,
their covered persons list. So
mhm,
you've got multiple USL teams now who are suffering under this, and it's just almost the right that you have to be diligent as teams because this is going to start costing people money,
yeah,
especially when
no,
these games end up becoming midweek games, because we know that midweek attendances are low. And
mhm,
at some point, these games are going to end up being midweek games because where else do you put them?
yeah, no, you're right. The only thing that I'm thinking of is if you look at the WNBA, NBA, especially the NBA. I'm not sure what their protocol is. I know I remember the infamous date in March of 2020 when Rudy Gobert and all those guys from the Utah team they tested positive, and the NBA had been super strict about COVID. But now all that you hear on an injury report is health and protocols, and they're out for today. So even if they do test positive and they have been around people, it seems like the NBA or in other leagues maybe are kind of more relaxed about it, and they're like, you know what, he's sick. That's all we could do. Let's just put him away, and hopefully he gets better until he tests negative, and then he can come back.
Possibly, but to Leah's point here, what you find is that obviously USL teams are flying commercial, and I think that's where you're probably seeing an uptick now.
Mhm,
A lot of NBA teams, Major League Baseball teams, they're hopping on charter planes and they're flying off to their games in that way. Now you've got a situation whereby teams are hopping on, commercial public flights that are often full that have very little masking anymore, and so you're in a situation whereby that's just a perfect kind of hotspot for people to kind of try and to ultimately contract things.
yeah.
I think that there's that kind of space for guys who are in even just more broadly. I mean, guys in the NBA and Major League Baseball are they're not doing the standard things that the rest of the normal people are doing, whereas USL players are on much lower wages, are often going out to the
Mm,
supermarket and grocery store, as you say here, and just shop normally. They go
yeah.
out and just do things like perhaps more like normal people. And so when that stuff is circulating around the community, it
Mhm.
it hits them.
Yeah, no, I think what's it called? I think the WNBA, one of their players from Seattle, I can't remember their name. She went to Twitter and she complained about the fact that they had to take commercial flights instead of taking these charters because they were exposed to more people and more liable to miss games due to contracting COVID or any sort of illness like that. So I definitely understand the frustration, and like you're saying, this gets in the way of people earning their money, and it affects a lot of people, not just the players. So something definitely to keep an eye out. Shout out to Pat, Glecko, Emilio, Leah, and the chat. Thank you for joining us. I know this is not our usual time on a Friday. Pat says now that there's no match on Saturday night, you guys are gonna go live on OGs to entertain. Correct? Maybe Owen. I don't know.
No, I'll give that one a miss. Maybe we'll get or maybe we can try and rope someone in from the back from the grave.
Mr. Deadwin. We'll see. We'll see. We'll call him.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe we could do a live stream of us playing e-football with New Mexico and Rising. We'll see how that goes. Leo with a great question. I'll get it to it. Glecko, forfeit, only answer. I'm sad there's no game.
It's
Bonnie, yeah.
Can we just address that one with the forfeit no answer? I mean, the league has never done that. With rare exception. The only time that that's actually happened was in a playoff game last year because effectively, if they didn't rule that it was one team advancing in that case, the whole playoffs would fall apart
Mm,
because you just didn't have 2 weeks to wait. But they've never ruled these games as forfeits. So I'd be surprised if anything went down that. It's rescheduled, is what we're hearing. I have to see.
yeah, for sure, for sure. Leah with the great question here. What do you think needs to change to prevent more of this happening? So more cases and more of these postponements of games.
I feel like there just needs to be a slightly better testing regimen at times. I think that's kind of the problem here is that again, if you're not testing people as regularly as you can be, especially with how easy it is to test people now, you kind of leaving yourself in a position where you are ultimately worried about the fact that, that'll spread around before you even detect it.
Yeah.
If you test more regularly, at least it gives you that fighting chance of finding people who are positive, of isolating them, and hopefully being able to continue. Whereby there's to Jet's point here, no, they don't have daily testing. I don't believe they've ever had daily testing in USL. It's always been around 48 hours, I think, before a match, or if there are symptoms. Um, and that was in the height of the pandemic. That's what the rules were back then. It's Look, it's hard to describe this as anything other than disappointing, is it? We're here trying to talk about it, but it's just disappointment is all I'm feeling. And Ramon,
Yeah.
same.
Yeah, no, definitely. I was really looking forward to the game. I was looking forward to a bounce back performance by Rising, and I really had my fingers crossed for Santi to be able to get on the board this season and have a great game. A lot of these guys, they're competitors. They want to be out there. They want to play every game, and I feel bad when they're not able to perform to the capabilities that I know that they're able to do it, and also against a rival, especially coming off that loss. So yeah, it's disappointing. We'll kind of just shrug their shoulders, and like how Earl is saying, wishing the best and speedy recovery for all affected. It's never good to have that. I've had a few family members that have had it really, really bad, and thankfully nothing too crazy. But yeah, it's not nothing to play with. It's something that's still going on, and so it's definitely something of concern. But yeah, hopefully they get better soon, and we can get back to playing.
Yeah, well said.
Pat here says Tampa did it. Tampa COVID strikes again. Oh my god. I wish I was like covering the team during that time, because I ran into a couple of the guys that are down there, the photographers, and they're like, man, I should have told you about Tampa. We're over there, spent so much money, and then the game got canceled. Like it's crazy, like how much COVID can affect stuff like that, and how everybody gets affected basically. So
It is, and this is now, of course, the third season in a row that we've had Rising games actively postponed because of COVID. It's the first time though that's come because Rising had COVID.
yeah. So they typically do a great job. Let's take a quick break, guys, here and talk about DraftKings. So the NBA playoff action is nonstop at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. This week, new customers can bet just $5 on any team to win and get $150 in free bets if they do. You can bet big by doing a parlay in the NBA playoffs, and that means that all customers can place a same game parlay with 3 or more legs and get a free bet back up to $25 if one leg doesn't hit. So download DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use promo code PHNX. Bet $5 on any NBA team to win their game and get $150 in free bets if they do. That's promo code PHNX only at DraftKings Sportsbook. 21 and over. Arizona only. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-NEXT-STEP. New customers only. Minimum $5 deposit. Eligibility restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Let's see. Let's look at some more comments here. Errol says, I do believe USL still has a 48-hour testing before travel match. Testing before traveling, basically. I was looking forward to Santi coming back to Albuquerque. Bonnie, will they reschedule a match between Phoenix Rising and New Mexico United? I think that's what was on the statement, right, Owen?
Yes. So yes, there is a match to be rescheduled at some point. That is the official line on that. It will be rescheduled, but
For sure.
yeah.
Letko says, I guess I missed the start. This is Phoenix Rising FC testing positive. How have we had much positive this season? Goodness me. Yeah, I mean, not great. But
No,
yeah,
and
no,
it's the other point, just to reiterate from the statement, was that it is multiple people, multiple covered persons in the team that are unable to participate, and it is from Rising, which is why we are, if anything, a little bit concerned about the impact this has. I know that some people in here were talking about, and possibly well on Twitter, about this gives people the opportunity to come back from injury, but bear in mind, of course,
yeah.
that you're possibly in a situation whereby training will not be happening. You're possibly in a situation whereby they may not be able to integrate themselves for a while to allow things to pass. We're just
Yeah,
gonna have
no.
to wait and see at this point.
Mhm. Yeah, no, that's exactly what I was thinking. I was like, what's the silver lining in this? Okay, well, maybe Musa gets another week of rest, or maybe another 2 weeks, because like you were saying earlier in the show, Owen, this may be a couple of weeks before everybody gets back up to level ground and they're able to resume games and get back to practice. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. This is breaking news that just came out from the club. So I'm not sure if we're gonna get more details, right, Owen? But hopefully we are, just to see where everybody is and making sure everybody's safe.
Yeah, yeah. And just to that comment there about the fact that Kev Lambert posting from London. Yeah, yeah.
I
I don't
saw
know.
that.
I don't know what's
I
going on
saw
there.
that, but I felt like maybe it was one of those like, hey, I took this a long time ago. I'm just posting this, so I'm not sure. That was a little bit weird. Maybe
Per Pat's comment here, so for Joe Farrell, his game, he will be suspended for the next played Rising match. He will be eligible for the reschedule, providing that is not the next match for Phoenix Rising. It will be the next match that he misses.
So just to look at the schedule then, so if he's, obviously the New Mexico game is not happening, so the next one would be at Hartford on
If
May.
it goes ahead, yeah.
If it goes ahead.
And then the following one to that is Birmingham Legion at
Gotcha,
home.
gotcha. Yeah, yeah. No, it's man, it's like the more we talk about it, the more it's like setting in, where it's like disappointment, and hopefully everybody can get back to full health, and there's no more cases, for any teams, So I think maybe do you think this is going to be a wake-up call to the rest of the league, saying, hey, we got to just do more testing now, not 48 hours or whatever amount of time before the game?
Possibly. But it's still just a question really of is there the desire to do it, I guess.
Does it fall in the league then, instead of the clubs, for them to say, hey, it's kind of getting crazy
Well, the
now?
problem is the elements of this are that I mean, it's a weird situation, isn't it? Because you have to remember that obviously the league is to an extent accountable to its board of governors, which includes people from all the clubs. At the same time, the league is technically owned by another entity. It's messy. Look, I'm not sure quite what USL is going to do, especially as cases seem to be coming up again. We seem to be seeing more of these games postponed. And the problem is we saw this at times last year as well and didn't really see any major change in any direction. So I don't know. I'm not sure what they're going to do. But I do know that at the very least, we're looking at least a week away from Rising being able to play,
Yeah.
possibly two.
Yeah, no, and the clear example to follow is Colorado. They've been away for now 2 weeks, so it's gonna maybe be over 2 weeks. If everything, if it matches up to what Colorado's been dealing with. So I mean, hopefully it doesn't go that long. So, yeah. Owen, any last words here before we wrap it up?
It's a really good question. I mean, the good news at least is that none of us had any money on this game, I guess. Not that it would matter, you'd get it back, but
Yeah, DraftKings will
it's a
get you back.
slight positive there. Yeah, but I don't know. It's just disappointment. That's all I really have to say at this point. It's just
Yeah,
feels like disappointment, doesn't it?
I gotta figure out what to do tomorrow. I typically block out my entire Saturday night for Rising. So yeah, we'll see. We'll figure it out. We'll keep you updated if anything changes, or if there are any more updates from the club or the league regarding this postponement of the game in New Mexico. So make sure to follow us on Twitter, PHNX__Rising. Do you want to say it today, or are we?
I feel like we shouldn't say it today. We normally say it's double the underscores, double the fun, but today not really. So yeah, just make sure to follow us on PHNX__Rising. We'll be giving you the updates as and when we can, and in the meantime, just have to hope that everyone stays as healthy as they can.
Yeah, for sure. We're gonna wrap it up here with Earl's comment. Really great comment here. He says, as a United fan, I was looking forward to this as a sports fan, but it worries me about the health of the specific club. Rivalry or not, health comes first. So thank you for that comment, Earl. Yeah, we were all looking forward to this match. So hopefully, once it's rescheduled, it can go according to plan. So again, the Rising game has been postponed for tomorrow at New Mexico. So very, very sad news coming out today. But hopefully everybody gets healthy again fairly quickly, and everybody can get back to the playing field. So that way the supporters and ourselves can cover the game over there at Horse Pass or wherever we're at. So Owen, thank you so much for joining. This was a last minute kind of thing. I know I was texting you. I was like, you gotta give me a few minutes so I can get going. But no, I appreciate it. Leia, thank you so much for setting this up. And I want to thank everybody that tuned in. I know it's in the middle of a work day on Friday, so we appreciate that. And don't forget to subscribe to the PHNX YouTube channel as well, in case we ever have to do this again. So that's it for us here at PHNX Rising. Thank you for tuning in. Be well, be safe, and we'll see you next time. Take care.